Now, affordability has been one of the key issues that Pierre Poilievre in particular has been talking about for a very long time. Our Faiza Amin has been speaking with experts and advocates, and you have been discussing affordability, Faiza, because again, it's really been top of mind.
And you heard from voters tonight, speaking with Melissa, speaking with our reporters throughout Canada here, that affordability, and it's something that we've been following throughout this election as well. More Canadians are just feeling that pinch on their wallet more than usual for a number of reasons as we contend with inflation, higher interest rates, as well as the trade war. Let's dig deeper into this conversation here. Bring in University of British Columbia Professor Paul Kershaw. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. You are part of Generation Squeeze. This is a think tank that draws links between policies here, and you use this term called generational unfairness. I like where you're going with this. Maybe explain what that means to our viewers at home.
Well, good to be with you. And I think in its simplest form, generational unfairness can be seen when one generation doesn't leave at least as much as it inherited for those who follow in our footsteps. And that actually is a real risk right now in Canada, whether you're thinking about our housing system, whether you're thinking about the planet's health, or whether you're thinking about how governments are using tax dollars and are they balancing their budgets or are they leaving deficits. And in all cases right now, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, you have reasons to ask the generations that have come before, like, hey, couldn't we do a little bit better here in terms of what's being left for us?
You're talking about this generational divide here. Let's get into some numbers here. So when it comes to how much would you say Gen Z and millennials are spending compared to baby boomers back then?
Well, let me give you some examples just in terms of the taxes that we pay. When baby boomers were young adults, there were 7 working age people to cover the cost of every retiree in terms of their retirement income and their medical care. But we called baby boomers a boom because they were a big group. And now that they're retiring, there are just 3 working age people to cover the needs of every retiree. And so many hands made lighter work back in the mid 1970s when boomers were young people. Today, if you're a millennial, you're paying 20 to 40% more in your income taxes to cover the cost of a healthy retirement for baby boomers by comparison with what boomers pay back in the day. So that's one example of how millennials and Gen Z are being asked to do more. But that's then coming on top of the fact that millennials and Gen Z are having to pay much higher rents. They take on much larger mortgages because my generation, I'm a Gen Xer, and boomers who came before me, we've extracted a lot of wealth from the housing system. And so the housing values have gone up. That's made us wealthier. But in order to prop up that system, millennials and Gen Z are having to pay so much more for their housing. And one of the really frightening stats that we see, and that any politician we know is going to have to deal with at the federal level going forward, is that like when my mom started in the housing market in the 1970s, it took 5 years of full-time work to save a 20% down payment on an average priced home. Now across the country, it's about 14 years, and in Ontario, it's closer to 20.
Yeah, and you hear Gen Zs and millennials even saying, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to afford a home, for instance. That's just the language that's being used these days. Okay, you're not only analyzing the realities lived by different generations here, you're also putting some ideas forward. So talk about reducing cash payments to retirees who still make over $100,000 per year. What would that reduction look like, and what impact? How can that alleviate some of the pressure off other generations?
Yeah, I think that one of the opportunities for us to use tax dollars more efficiently is to ask financially secure retirees to potentially accept a little bit less old age security. And it might surprise your listeners to learn that you can be a retired couple having $180,000 of income and still receive an $18,000 old age security subsidy. And despite that generosity of our old age security system, we still have about 500,000 retirees who live below the official poverty measure. So one of the ideas that I think really needs more consideration, and it's not the easiest one to talk about in an election because it can be spun in ways that sound quite controversial, but I think it's time for us to ask financially secure retirees who have household incomes above $100,000 to be open to accepting slightly less in the subsidy from old age security so that the savings could be repurposed both to eliminate seniors' poverty and also to invest in the housing, the post-secondary and childcare of their kids and grandchildren's generations.
Professor, we have about 20 seconds left. I'm wondering if that's enough for you to tell me what one message or priority you'd like the next leader in government to focus on.
Well, I think we have to move beyond just talking about how many more homes we're going to build and acknowledge that millennials and Gen Z are facing high costs now that they need some compensation for because their high rents are protecting the wealth that I've gained. As someone who's being protected, I think it's time to compensate those offering the protection.
Very interesting conversation. We'll leave it at that. Professor Paul Kershaw of the University of British Columbia, thank you so much.